Welcome to the Sustainability Strategy Summit. Today's interview is with AJ Gordon, CEO of Gordon Aluminum. Welcome, AJ, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's dive in. So as a CEO, there are a lot of competing priorities for your attention. Why does Gordon Aluminum feel it's important to pay attention to sustainability? And what are your key drivers?
We've talked about this in the past, but our key drivers are really more based around the business case for it, right? When we look at the health of the organization, we have to look at not just what we do on a daily basis to produce our product for our customer and meet those customer demands, but also what are the things that we can do long term to make sure that we've been around for 63 years, and I'd like to be here for another 63. And so what are the things that are going to keep us relevant going into the future? And one of those things is, from a very practical sense, looking at the efficiency with which we create our product. That it affects not only our pricing and our competitiveness, but it also affects the resources that we use. And as those resources either become scarce or we see that those resources are having a negative effect on the rest of our environment, we want to make sure that, again, we're being prudent with the use of those resources. And so that's really the biggest driver. And as far as competing for attention, it doesn't compete as much as it stands alongside. Right. I mean, many of the decisions we make, yes, a lot of things have to do with specific customer requests or specific things that we need to do. But in a larger sense, everything we do should be focused on being efficient, on being good stewards of all of those things that affect not only our company, but our employees, our customers. And we live in the Northwoods, and we like nature up here. we're avid users of it, and so we want to protect that as well. So again, I don't think it really competes for that attention. I think it really lives alongside most of the things that we do on a daily basis, and it's just something that kind of goes along with it. Yeah,
that's great. I hear that a lot from leaders and organizations, that sustainability might be something extra that they have to do. And I like how you're pointing out, well, it really helps us look at all the things that we're doing in an efficient way.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of people shy away, is that they think it's this onerous task of adding an environmental aspect to what you're doing, when in reality, the environmental aspect exists there, whether you want to pay attention to it or not, it exists there. So looking at it in conjunction with the other things you're doing, and as part of your overall strategy, I don't think really adds anything extra. It's just another thought that you have to have in your mind while you're making those decisions.
Yeah, that's great. So while we're on the topic of sort of resource efficiency, I know that you have spent some extensive time really looking at your resource use in your operations. So I'm curious, where have you found the biggest ROI or the biggest value for Gordon Aluminum, and any projects that have came out of that as a result?
Yeah, our product requires a lot of energy. There's just no way around it. We have to take, billets of aluminum from air temperature, room temperature, up to 850 degrees plus, and then we have to use a lot of hydraulic pressure to press that aluminum through the die and make the shapes that we make. So there's no way around using a significant amount of energy. But what it doesn't require is, it doesn't require us to run more than we need to. It doesn't, overproduction. It doesn't require us to create scrap and put product through the process unnecessarily that you're just going to, again, have to recycle. And a lot of our efforts in sustainability have been toward looking at how do we reduce those scrap rates? How do we improve production rates? Because if I'm running my extrusion press at a certain rate, the marginal amount of energy that it takes to produce at that rate, say X plus 20%, is not 20% more. it's maybe 5% more. And in that, you're reducing the amount of time it takes to produce the same amount of product. So we had to kind of change our thought process and not look at what's the energy consumption of our machinery. That was a bad way of looking at it. And that, frankly, was how we looked at it in the beginning. When we first started on this process, it was about, well, how do we make our ovens more efficient? How do we make our presses more efficient? And a lot of those answers were, one, extremely expensive, and two, very, very difficult to implement in a plant that already has all the equipment it needs to produce its product. So we really had to change our focus, not to what's our energy consumption overall, but what's our energy consumption per unit of product produced. And that really is the better measurement. So if we can use the same amount of energy and produce 20% more, 30% more product, our energy consumption per unit drops fairly dramatically. And that really, at the end of the day, is what we're going for. And so we focused more on extrusion die design, making the dies run easier, run faster, less surface quality issues. That has the side effect of also, in many cases, making less scrap. So we have to produce less to get the same amount of final product. And those were the ones that we really looked at and said, okay, this just makes sense. I mean, take the environmental aspect out of it, this just makes sense. But it is also a good way to measure your input per product produced, I guess. Alongside of that, we also, we wanted to look at some of the low-hanging fruit as well, right? I mean, it's not rocket science to figure out that an LED light fixture burns less than the metal halide fixtures, or even the high bay fluorescence. And so as we have had replacements, we replaced with the newer technology, replaced with more efficient technology. It has the side benefit of also being longer lasting and all of those wonderful things. But so, I mean, there are some things that you just, that are outside of the manufacturing process that just make sense. So, but as far as the highest ROI, clearly it's been going after those efficiency aspects of machine utilization. How, what is our energy input for us per pound or per unit? And we've seen some significant improvement from that. I think the original PSI product or project, we had one particular extrusion that we were running, I think probably 20 to 30,000 pounds a week of this extrusion. We were able to, through the process, we were able to improve our production rate on that by about 50%. I mean, it was a huge
Wow.
number.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that, again, you kind of facepalm moment, like, why didn't we do this before? But sometimes it takes the impetus and the I guess looking at it from a different angle to push you in the right direction.
Yeah. I really love how you're saying it's almost like a hidden benefit to sustainability that's not obvious in the forefront, right? Like you think, you were coming at it wrong from the beginning. You can't necessarily make your machines work more efficient, but if you change the way you're thinking about it, you're actually
Right.
producing a lot more, with the same or less. And so, to me, that's sort of the beauty of what sustainability can offer if you're really looking at it across your business, is all of these potential new opportunities that you might not have seen prior.
Right.
So let's talk about sort of the customer side of the equation now. We're sort of seeing this increase in the conversation around ESG, environmental social governance, and that's sort of starting to trickle down the supply chain. Are you being asked by any customers about sustainability? And if you are, what are they asking?
If you had asked me 3 months ago, I would have told you I haven't heard boo. I mean, we have never been asked that. Very, very recently, we have seen that a couple of our customers have forwarded us their sustainability policies, and it's been more of a, well, this is what we're doing. We hope you agree, or we hope you can be part of that.
Okay.
So there hasn't been any demands yet.
Mm-hmm.
but it certainly feels like that, right? I
Mm,
mean, customers don't put that type of information out now without probably asking for some commitment on it later. Uh,
mhm.
and so I think that's kind of a soft ask, right?
It's a
So we're
good way to
starting
put
to
it.
hear about it. For the most part, our customers are concerned with the economics of things, right?
Mhm.
They need the part they want made the way they want it, when they want it, at a price that fits their budget for whatever they're making. Um, and that tends to be the highest priority.
Mhm.
Uh, what we have used more recently in marketing, and not just marketing, but just in our conversations with customers, has been that, look, we do these things as a differentiator, not as a sales tool, right? Not to say that, hey, look at us, we're green, buy from us. Though, hey, if you want to,
Why not?
we're not going to stop you.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, it's really more about showing commitment to continuous improvement, not just in the very traditional sense of 5S or lean or things like that, but on a broader rate that, look, we're not just looking at this one aspect of it. We're looking at the full picture to try to provide a product to you, that is what you need when you need it, and such, but also that comes from a company that's not going to go away in the near future because we have poor policies related to other things that are becoming more important to the general public, and to their customers, frankly.
Mhm.
So if you look at it, I guess in reverse, we're trying to drive it up the supply chain, um, even though we're not really being asked a whole lot about it from above us in the supply chain. So we see it, and I think I don't think there's any doubt that we will see it more.
Mm.
Um, I would. It's kind of one of those things. You never want the question to be asked that you don't know the answer to. And if you know you're going to be asked the question, you best have an answer. And this is part of our way of having that answer. And again, from our perspective, it's very pragmatic. We look at it and we say, well, we should be doing these things anyway. So why wouldn't we then take those things, quantify them, and show them as a benefit to our customers? Um, so we haven't seen a ton of it, but there's no doubt in my mind we will see more. And
Yeah.
again, that it will no longer be a soft ask. It will be
Mm.
a, hey, what are your sustainability efforts and how do they fit into our mold? Uh,
Yeah.
and I don't know when people start making purchasing decisions based on that. But again, if you're asking the question, it has to have some effect. And as you said, with corporate governance and I guess a larger push on that end, I think those are going to become requirements. Maybe not
Mhm.
tomorrow, but in the next several years, I think if you don't have a sustainability program, you're not going to be in front of, especially larger publicly traded companies that might have a little bit more public pressure to
Mhm.
commit to actions like that. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So what would you say to, the CEO that hasn't got a request yet or just got their first request? You've already stated some great benefits that you've seen at Gordon Aluminum. Any advice you would give
yeah, I mean,
fellow leader?
this to me is just, if you do your SWOT analysis and you're looking at threats, right? I think a big threat out there, threat being defined as something external that you don't control internally. A big threat out there is that the processes that you use to create your product fall out of favor. And if you don't have an answer for that, or if you haven't been working to bring those processes into some type of, I guess, compliance, I think you could get swatted pretty hard. I mean, I think it could do some damage. Um, we're very diversified. We have a lot of different customers and a lot of different manufacturing areas. for some companies, it's not that diverse. And one large customer with that request, if you don't have something in the pipeline or something to put in front of them, that could put you in a very negative position. So, and on the other side of it, talking to other business leaders, it's a matter of breaking the mindset of, look, if we want to be green, we have to put solar panels on the roof, we have to put rainwater collection, we have to do all of these things. And those are great. And if they work for your business, by all means pursue them. But that's not where you start. Where you start is just looking at your operation and saying, hey, how can we be more efficient or better users of the resources that we bring in? And that goes from, everything in your organization, from packing material all the way through the big users of, electricity and gas. So I don't know. I think my advice to other CEOs is just, one, accept the fact that this is going to happen. So even if you kind of have that mindset that this is all ridiculousness and it's going to go away, it'll blow over, it's not. And even if it does, it's not, it doesn't harm you, right? I don't know if you're familiar with Pascal's wager. Pascal's wager is a philosophical concept of, it's based on the belief in God or not. And so it's a 4-square matrix. And if you believe in God and there is no God, you haven't lost anything, right?
Right.
But if you don't, and there is, it's eternal damnation, right? And that's in this sense, if you believe you should do something and that necessity for it never comes up, you've still improved your company, you've still improved your process. So there's no downside to it. So you have to kind of take the political aspect out of it, regardless of where you live in that regard, and just say, hey, does this make sense? If we're betting on this matrix, what square should we be in? And I think, well, just obviously we've made that decision. But if you really look at it from that standpoint, and again, the pragmatic standpoint, there's no reason not to have that answer. There's no reason not to be able to show your customers, or for that matter, other stakeholders, banks, shareholders, whoever, that you are thinking about this.
I really like how you said earlier too, it's like, it's the new wave of continuous improvement, right? It's just today's way of looking at how can you do what you're doing in your business better. And as a result,
right,
maybe reduce your impact on the environment and
right.
or
And it changes that definition of better a little bit,
yeah.
right? Because better in some senses just means, are we more profitable? And too many times, especially in public companies or companies that are gearing themselves up to be sold for private equity held companies, sometimes they're looking so much at that short-term gain that they don't necessarily understand that, that might be great for the next 5 years, but it won't keep you alive for the next 15. And it really is just adding a long-term component to your strategy, as opposed to no different than the maintenance of capital goods, right? If you've got a really big machine that you need to run for a long time, yeah, you can probably save some money right now by ignoring certain issues on it. But if you don't maintain that machine, you're not going to be around in 15 years when those things start to break. And I don't think our environment is much different, right? I mean, you can look at it now and say, yeah, but it's not that big a deal right now. Yeah, but cumulatively over a period of time, it might be, in which case, now you've got a much bigger problem that you can no longer solve because you ignored these things on the front end. You ignored the maintenance piece of it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Long-term thinking. That's such a great add and a way to think about sustainability strategy. I mean, chuckling to myself a little internally because I literally just had this conversation with my dad, who was joking about, buying a property in the coast of Florida. And I was like, Dad, I'm not so sure that's a good investment idea for the long term. And, his perspective was, well, I'm 80, right? Like I ain't gonna be
Yeah,
around for the long term
his
enough.
long term is different than your long term.
But I am, and your grandkids are. So yeah, long-term thinking is definitely a priority in the way that we think about sustainability and strategy. I love that you wove that in. So I'm going to turn to talk a little bit about workforce issues, right? We hear so much about workforce challenges today, and it's particularly challenging for manufacturers. In your opinion, can sustainability help in any way or give you a competitive advantage? What are your thoughts there?
I think that it somewhat depends on your market, where you're drawing from, who are the types of employers you're looking for. Because in many cases in manufacturing, I think there is a thought process that what we're doing on the floor has nothing to do with sustainability efforts, and I don't need to know that to do my job. On the other hand, I think that when employees are looking at places they want to work for, if they view it as a long-term engagement, if they look at it as a career, they want to be with companies who are going to be there. They want to work for companies who are doing the right things. I think there's also a generational difference, and the folks in our facility that are retiring after 25 years, 40 years for that matter, sustainability, they don't really, that was never part of their equation in working for a company. But as I just said, they're retiring and we're replacing them with a newer generation of employees that I don't think there's any mystery about the millennial generation and Gen Z with regard to their priorities. They aren't the same as the boomer priorities or even Gen Xers. And that sense of working for someone who is not only successful but good, they want that perception of working for someplace that is good, and that doesn't mean just okay, we pay you well and you get vacation. It means they don't want to be contributing to something that might be detrimental to what they feel is important. So I think much like the customer side of it, I think the employee side of it is evolving. And I haven't been asked any sustainability questions by any prospective employees, but I know we've had a fair bit of engagement from current employees when we bring these things up. So we do see, and it's pockets, right? It's not everybody. It's not everybody in the facility. There are many people here who just, they want to come in, they want to get the paycheck so they can go home and, be with their families, go fishing. And, the last thing on their mind is Gordon Aluminum sustainability programs. But there are a fair number, and I think we will see more that do think that that's important. Is it going to be the differentiating factor? I don't know. Maybe not. But again, I think in the toolbox, just like it is with the customers, in the toolbox, I think that's an important tool to have there to say, hey, by the way, if you're interested in sustainability efforts, we have these things going on and we'd love you to participate when you come on board. People are looking for purpose, and if they feel that they can do a job, start a career, get paid well, get good benefits, and also get to work on something that is a environmentally positive thing. Maybe that is the tipping point. So as far as the labor market is concerned, I think right now it's just crazy, right? I mean but it will not be that way forever. And we will get back to a point where there is, I guess, a balance between what employers are looking for and what employees are looking for. And this is part of that balance.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I right now, I don't think if I put that up on our employment page, it's going to drive hundreds of workers to apply. But I think if it's not there in the future, you may miss applicants that would otherwise apply. So again, differentiating factor. And I'd rather have that in the toolbox than not.
Yeah.
And also because again, it has the added benefit of being the right thing to do. Right?
Exactly.
So.
Well, and I like how you wove in purpose a little bit, right? So it's like those, and that you sort of differentiate it from those who want to earn a paycheck and those who want a career, right? And those that want a career are more likely those to potentially engage in the conversation on work time and potentially out of work, right? And so having that opportunity for them there could mean a difference, maybe now, maybe in the future.
and frankly, those are the people you're looking for. The people that want to be someplace, those are the ones we want. We want people who are looking for an opportunity, not just to come in and do a job, but to do that job and improve, and then maybe move up to a different job and spend a career of continuous advancement and being part of something bigger than just a job. Those are the people you want, because they're the ones that are going to be the most committed to your product, your process, and frankly, your success. So it's important. And if that's one of the things that drives them toward that mindset, then great. I'm in.
So on the same topic, I'm curious from your perspective as a CEO, if you have an employee that wants to make a difference in your organization, say sustainability, what are you looking for from them, right? So we have a lot of sustainability practitioners that are looking to influence change in their organizations and maybe don't always have the language of the C-suite or the top or access, but so what do you want to hear from them when they come to you?
Solve a problem, right? Bring me something that, first of all, speak up, say something, right? Because there's nothing. I've had this conversation sometimes in more terse language than others with people. That is, look, you are never, ever, ever going to be in trouble in my organization for bringing up a problem. You're going to be in trouble if you knew about it and you didn't bring it up. So please speak up, say what you think. And a lot of times we encourage that, and sometimes people come to us with things and we have to explain that, yeah, I get why you see it that way. And from your perspective, I understand why it's problematic, but here's why we do that. And there might be something that's happening further down the manufacturing chain, or a specific request of the customer, or whatever it is that explains that to them and makes them say, oh, I get it now. Okay, we can't do that because if we do that, then we can't do this, whatever the case may be. And then the light bulb turns on and they say, thank you for letting me know. And that has the side benefit of them not being frustrated in their job, looking at something every day thinking, this is so dumb, why are we doing this? So to that extent, we want people to speak up. If you see that there's an opportunity for improvement, raise your hand, say something to your supervisors, walk into my office. We have a very open door policy. If you have things that you see that could be improved, I am all ears. And that goes for anything on the sustainability side as well. But to get a little deeper, right, if you're really looking at someone who's coming that really has something they want to get done, show me how it solves a problem. Show me how it makes us better at what we do. Because bringing me something, and goes back to the earlier conversation, don't bring me solar panels and rain collection. That's not improving what we do, unless you can show me that it does. And I'm all ears again. But bring me things that are A, useful, and B, practical, right? Or I don't want to say useful. I guess things that are are impactful, right? I mean, there are a lot of things that we do on a daily basis that we could do better. And for everything from, if it's, hey, you know what, we need more cardboard recycling bins around the plant because people don't want to walk that far and they end up just throwing it in the trash. Hey, you know what? Simple solution. Great. We'll get on that because that is a low to no cost solution for a problem that, hey, I don't want people having to walk too far to put cardboard in a bin.
Right. It's logical too.
Right?
Yeah.
That's inefficient.
Yes, yeah.
So those are things that have practical applications. So bring me the practical applications, and I would be happy to listen. But again, I think too many times practitioners in that regard are probably more aggressive than what the C-suite is looking for, right? Let's eat this elephant one bite at a time. And let's do what we can that's practical. Let's do what we can that is cost efficient. And then let's focus on the big nuts, the manufacturing improvements that we talked about earlier. And quite frankly, I expect, especially people that are, not just floor level, but supervisory and above, I expect them to be looking for ways to make things more efficient. That's part of the job description. We're always supposed to be looking at that. And explaining to them, and maybe part of it is education on our part, and we could do better at that, but to educate them as to, look, making these changes isn't just about, getting out 3 pieces more per hour. It's about utilizing that machine more effectively. It's about utilizing our resources more effectively. So those things aren't just about, cracking the whip, so to speak, and making people work harder. It's about improving our process and in that process, making our environmental impact smaller. And so maybe it's, there might be some education we could do on that side just to give people a little bit better perspective of what sustainability really means. Because again, I think I keep using it, and I don't mean to bag on solar panels, but it's just a simple example for me that, if we covered our entire roof in solar panels, it wouldn't power the press for 10 minutes. I mean, unfortunately, that's just part of our process. So in our world, that's one of those examples of, yes, I understand how they work and I understand the sustainability aspect of renewable energy. However, focusing our resources in a different direction can have a much, much bigger benefit much, much sooner. And then once we have all that, and then let's look at, okay, how do we take the next step? But you have to hit the big things first. And so when you look at how an employee can bring those up, I think one, I would go back to the CEO question, right? One is, how do we educate our people on what improvement means? And how do we fold that into the things we expect them to be looking for on a daily basis? Because if we do that, hey, the people that are in contact with the product, most of the time, have a better idea of how to improve the process than somebody's looking at it from a detached perspective, because they're dealing with it every day. And simple things not only make their jobs better, give them greater job satisfaction. Now we talk about the labor market and not just finding employees, but keeping employees. But they also have the added benefit of being more efficient and therefore being part of the sustainability effort. So I don't think you can separate these. We talked about these in different categories. We talked, what advice do you give to CEOs? Why do you look at the labor side of it? What about customers? They're all one, because your employees are the key to driving, customer satisfaction. And your process has to be right, because all the employee effort in the world doesn't correct for a bad process. So all of those things work together to create the product and to provide the level of service to your customer. And if you pull one of them out, it doesn't work. So I think when you look at sustainability from a broader perspective, it really is more just about, look, everybody's got to be pulling the same direction. Your process has to be continually improved to allow employees to be more effective. I mean, one of the things I've said many times in the process, or in the last several months, where the labor shortage has been the most extreme we've ever seen it, is that, look, if you can't find more people, you have to make your people more effective.
Mhm.
So how do you do that? Well, you get more units per hour, and you get, the same things that are driving the sustainability effort that we talked about earlier. I mean, all those things are part and parcel of the same thing. So hard to separate them, right? But I think back to the employee piece of it, speak up, right?
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to bring things up, because most people, at least the people I know that are in the C-suite, they want to hear good ideas. And even if they don't think it's a good idea, just personal history, I spent the first, I don't know, 5 years of my life at Gordon Aluminum, being told no every time I tried to push an improvement, largely because my dad thought I was just young and dumb. But if you say it enough times, even if you get denied, it starts planting those seeds. And I knew that eventually those seeds would grow and you might see the light, right? You might see
Mhm.
other problems that this would have addressed, or,
Mhm.
and so keep bringing it up. It's not, you don't, I don't want somebody standing outside my door, beating the drum on a daily basis, right? But don't be afraid to bring it up. And even if you're told, hey, you know what, I don't think that's the right thing to do right now. All right, well, when should we talk about it again?
Mhm.
And what other ideas could I, how else could I make this more attractive,
Mm.
to the company?
Mm.
And a lot of times it's just the justification. What are the factors you're using to justify it?
Mhm.
So I don't know.
So persistence pays off. That's
I think so. I mean, it's been my experience.
yeah.
And I know that I've, on the other side of it, I've had people here that have said, we really got to do this. Yeah, I know we really got to do it, but you got some other things going on, and I don't know if that's going to fit. Yeah, but we really got to do this. And, you have that conversation time and time again. And then something happens. Typically, there's some catalyst that says, oh, shoot, you know what? You're right. We really do have to do this.
Mhm.
And thank God for those people, because otherwise you get so tracked on other things that you start to lose the periphery and not see where you could get benefit, outside of just this single track. So broadening the spectrum. Sometimes you got to pull a little bit on either side just to open up the view.
Yeah. That's great. And the other thing in there I think was really great, for practitioners to keep in mind is how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? Because the long-term project might be their vision and it might be too big of a project right now. So how can you phase that out so that it
Right.
makes sense to actually accomplish and budget for, and gain momentum along the way, right? And then to your point, then it's like all of a sudden it's time and the big project is either you're ready or it's complete. So,
Right.
mhm.
Yeah, and that's that's a very good way to look at it, because it's I have a good friend who's in the banking industry, and when you look at financing equipment, financing machinery, it's sometimes it's about purely the numbers. Like, this is the ROI. It's 18 months, blah 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 blah. Sometimes it's about, it does this and this for the organization, and it allows us to expand into these areas of sales, which are helping with our, diversify the portfolio of the company, and things like that. Sometimes it's about, hey, this is a new process. We see an opportunity in market that we just haven't been in before, but we can really make an impact here. At the end of the day, it's really about how you package the bacon, right? You package it with the most meat showing. and you got to package the bacon the right way for the consumer. And if that consumer is a CEO or a CFO or a COO, whatever it is, you got to package the bacon the right way. And sometimes not only do you have to not only do you have to show them a benefit, but you have to show them a benefit in a way that speaks to them. And that's not easy to do. I'm not trying to make that sound so simple, but really knowing your audience and what portions of that are the most important to them, that's going to be important in how you present it.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, great point. I often tell sustainability practitioners to think of themselves as influencers, whether they think that's who they are or not, because, we're constantly trying to drive and to push things that, we hear a lot of no's a lot, and that can be disheartening. And your advice is spot on for, for those, and knowing your audience and being able to speak their language, right? So sustainability practitioners learning how to speak finance, learning how to speak, what are your priorities? What are the things that you care about? And how can, to your point, how can you package it in a way that makes your ears perk up and want to hear more, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, AJ, thank you so much. This has been so insightful. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
It's been my pleasure. Anytime.